I take this immense pleasure to go ahead and welcome our next speaker on board. Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is going to be Ernest Gavor. He is an award-winning social entrepreneur and technology innovator. He is the co-founder and director of the Ghana Society of Education Technology. He works with portfolios of over 500 startups, small and growing business across Ghana, employing 2,000 youth and women. Let's go ahead and welcome him on board.
Hi. Hello to all our audience across the globe. And my name is Ernest Gavor, and I'm excited to join you at IBE Forum this year, focusing on digital learning in Africa. I'm sure we've all had an exciting time since yesterday, and today is day 2. And excited that I present to you. I have a bit of a cold, so permit me to sip water in between slides. So my presentation is focused on EdTech in Africa and what COVID-19 taught all of us. Now it's not a secret. Everybody on this call knows that COVID struck the world, and in 2019, it started in 2019. Africa started recording its cases in 2020. Most African countries recorded their first cases in 2020. Now, I am speaking from Ghana, and I work with the Ghana Society for Education Technology, and we are using technology to solve the toughest challenges in education. We are most focused on educators, so we are CPD accredited. We develop all sorts of models and courses that we deliver to teachers mainly and other players in the education field, including the management and policy level. Now, back to COVID. Now, when we all woke up one morning and the world started having a discussion about COVID-19, a virus that started in China, most of us thought it was only a health issue, or even when it started building up, we all assumed it might just end up as a health crisis, but it didn't turn out so. It became a major issue for the education community across the globe. And in Africa, we were not spared. So my presentation today is focused on education, because I work in that space with the Ghana Society for Education Technology, GSET for short, and the lessons we picked from how we all reacted from the national level, from the education management level, and from the private side of things, how we all reacted to COVID when it came so far as education is concerned. So my presentation reflects on 5 key themes, or call them questions if you like, on how we all handled COVID-19 when it struck all of us in Africa specifically. Now, most of my examples or references may be about Ghana, because that is where the core of our activities are based. So permit me if I tend to make a lot of reference to Ghana. Now, these are the 5 points I intend to have all of us reflect on or avail our minds to. The digital divide, the absence of digitalized curricula, open educational resources, digitizing curricula in Ghana, and that's the work we are doing at GSET. Want to share some few experiences there. And my last point on how prepared our educators are to infuse technology in teaching. So join me in the next few seconds. I mean, it's a very short presentation as we reflect on these 5 points so far as the coming and reactions to COVID-19 was concerned on the African continent. Yes, so my point number 1, the digital divide. Now, for most of our audience that are from Africa, even those who might have visited before or might not have visited, do not live here, do not have the experience. Now, generally, in Africa, Ghana, with no exception, it may be like one country, but there's always that challenge where part of the population dwells in the cities and part dwells in very rural areas. Now, the it's for the purposes of this presentation, I want us to reflect on the fact that we cannot deal with these two sets of, or these two divides of the population when it comes to issues of digital learning. So in Ghana, for instance, the last census says that at least 43% of the population lives in rural areas. And even with about 57% of the population that dwelled in what may refers to as urban Ghana, there is still a significant number of those that live in communities in the urban center that qualify to be called rural. So that means that the 43% that is reflected in the statistics may be understated, because we do find people living in the urban space whose lives are largely rural. Now, when we have discussions around digital learning in Africa, it's important to have our minds to these two sets of people, if you like, or for lack of better words. Now, the resources available to the rural dweller is not the same resources available to the urban dweller. Now, when policymakers or governments or the ministries of education are thinking about development in the rural communities as education is related, typically it has been the provision of infrastructure. So the thinking has always been get teachers to be there, get them quarters or flats to live in, get the school physical infrastructure, classrooms, offices for teachers, libraries, etc. That has always been a focus. Now, when COVID came, we all realized that that should not be only the focus of the government or the state. The state before COVID should have been interested in making sure that infrastructure that delivers digital learning to our schools was equally made available evenly, both in the urban and the rural community. In Ghana, for instance, when the first case of COVID was reported in March. Now, by just some context, since then the numbers have risen to now about 157,000 people have been afflicted, and some 1,400 have died since. But unfortunately, now when the first cases came in March 2020, sorry. As what has happened in most parts of the world, there was a lockdown. Now, pupils, students were asked to stay home. Teachers were not, of course, not going to school. Then there was a need to figure out how do we deliver learning and teaching to, how do teachers sitting at home deliver learning to their pupils and students who are also home. Then the classroom, the physical infrastructure that was provided became partly useless or temporarily useless. What became critical at that point was infrastructure that could deliver internet, devices in the hands of both the rural dweller and the urban dweller that could make it possible for the teacher to connect with the students in their homes. Unfortunately, this was not the story of the rural dweller. Most people, the affluent who lived in the urban areas, were largely okay. Their kids had devices, they had laptops, they had tablets at home. Internet accessibility in the urban cities was fairly okay. So schools in the urban centers could easily adjust and start doing some learning and teaching remotely. Now, the rural community had difficulty because they did not have this infrastructure readily available. Issues of availability and affordability of smart devices remains an issue for the rural dweller. So the lesson here for us as COVID was concerned is that as a people, we need to work harder. We need to push harder to deliver development to our rural communities as well. And development in this context is not just physical buildings. We need to make broadband internet available to the rural community more and more, and of course, with good quality, not just broadband. So to summarize this point, COVID taught us that internet shouldn't be the preserve of the rich. Broadband internet should not only be restricted to urban cities. The rural communities need it. It's a matter of survival now. The next pandemic, we most likely will need it. And we don't need to wait for the next pandemic before realizing the basic tool that internet has become. Okay, so that was the lesson COVID taught us in relation to our communities in terms of the rural and urban communities. So my point number 2. Now, aside the availability of internet was issues of content and how standardized that content was. When there was lockdown, partially there was some democratization of education. So your kid can be home and probably be able to take a course in the US, or I can be in Ghana and take a course in Egypt, or my kids can be in South Africa and take courses in Tunisia or all over. Now, how do we compare? How do we know that the curricula across countries in the region are standardized such that a teacher or content that's been delivered in a particular area, say Ghana, could be mapped to content in South Africa? Unfortunately, that was not the case. At the striking of COVID, most, if not all, countries in Africa had their curricula or their curriculum mostly in book form or in paper form. The best you would have seen would be PDFs that were made available on the websites of the education ministries or the curriculum, the divisions that were in charge of curricula. Now, that's then presented a challenge. In Ghana, for instance, we did not have the school curricula online or in digitized format. Of course, you will see some PDF, but it was difficult. It was not machine readable. It was difficult to map, say, articles that were online to be able to make meaningful decisions as to if the content you are seeing being provided by, say, a startup that is now delivering education online, if that actually is mapped or it's actually standardized based on what the expectations of the national curricula is. Because we did not have digitalized curricula when COVID struck, that posed a challenge to all of us. So you had startups that were delivering probably good content through smart apps. There were all kinds of apps that came up, all kinds of learning management systems were up, delivering all kinds of things remotely to our learners. But there was a difficulty measuring or even assessing the quality of this content that were being delivered by all sorts of individuals, companies, startups, teachers who were working remotely and all those things. So one of the things COVID taught us then was that there was a need to digitalize our curricula across countries, not just one country, so that tomorrow, if I pick a content that has been developed based on the Nigerian curricula, I can say that, yes, this is how it maps to the Ghanaian curricula. If I happen to be in South Africa and there was a lockdown and all my kids have access to is content in South Africa, there must be a way to, using digital tools, to be able to map the content that is available in South Africa to the content or the curricula of Ghana, to make sure that if they take some education in South Africa, Egypt, or Nigeria, and they return to Ghana after maybe a lockdown, they have learned what is expected of them to learn in terms of the Ghanaian curricula, and then they can proceed from there. So again, COVID taught us the need to have our national curricula digitized to make it more available to the teachers for teaching purposes, for learners, and even for parents for comparative and assessment purposes. So my point number 3, it relates to all my previous points, is open educational resources. Now, generally, we've all been, should I say, selfish. So content is developed, educational resources is developed, and it's almost proprietary. So it's not openly licensed, it's not readily available for learning, teaching, and research. And that's what open educational resources do. They are supposed to be materials, educational materials that are of good quality and are made freely available or openly available, and so that anyone who wants to participate in some learning, some teaching, or some research work can use those without the barrier of it's not being licensed for open use and all kinds of things. So one of the things COVID taught us was the need to make more OERs available. If we make more open educational resources available, it's for all of us, our benefit as humanity. Because education cannot be restricted based on one's ability to afford or somebody making it proprietary. We all know the power of education. So it's important for educational resources to be made freely available so that with or without a pandemic, all desiring to learn should have access to this material across the globe. If it's whether it's in South Africa, it's in Ghana, it's in Egypt, Kenya, wherever it is, it should be made available through the power of the internet now, so that learning can be promoted and teaching and research as well. Now, the other, so a bit of sharing of experience in Ghana. The Ghana Society for Education Technology, we partnered with Wikimedia Foundation recently and started working on digitizing the Ghanaian curricula. And of course, this has the background in what some of the points I've shared earlier on what happened when COVID struck. And we were all found wanting. Teachers and educators were found wanting. Pupils, students, and their parents were found wanting. So we went into this partnership with Wikimedia Foundation and other institutions, including UNESCO, now working hard in the next about 11 months to get the Ghanaian curricula digitized, so that in the years and the days ahead, with or without a pandemic, curriculum is machine readable, it's readily available. A learner can go and access it digitally or online. A teacher can go and access it. A researcher can go and access it. And it's made in a form that it's machine readable, so that even articles that are on Wikipedia can be linked directly to a standardized curriculum. So that when I read an article, as say a high school student online, it's easy to map it to what part of my school curriculum that is related to. So this is a project we are working on currently with the National Council for Curriculum and Assessment in Ghana, Wikimedia Foundation, UNESCO, the Ghana Library Authority, and other partners to make sure content or the curriculum is digitalized and is available online for learners, teachers, and educators. So my last point is how prepared our teachers are, or educators are, to infuse technology in teaching. Now, this was a stark awakening for me personally and for Ghana Society for Education Technology when COVID struck. Now, we were one of the very first institutions in Ghana who put together a package a course to be able to train teachers immediately COVID struck, to be able to deliver teaching and learning remotely. We call it remote learning and teaching. And we went into partnership with the Ghana Education Service to deliver this. On the first run, we were struck with the level of preparedness of our educators, or teachers for that matter, their level of technology awareness and technology knowledge. Now, because that preparedness wasn't there when COVID struck, it became difficult for them to use even freely available technologies to deliver teaching from their homes. Okay, so my hypothesis is that our educators, teachers for that matter, are largely not prepared to infuse technology in their teaching. Now, way forward is for policymakers, those of us in the continuous professional education space, to keep pushing the agenda to make sure our teachers are prepared. It's important I know in Ghana, there are a few institutions that are trying to work on the preparation for teachers. The teaching, the colleges of education, to make sure the teachers are trained to be able to use technology when they come on. We at the Ghana Society of Education Technology, which have been working closely. Just yesterday, we had session with close to 900 teachers, trying to build their skill and capacity to make sure they are able to use readily available tools, from their smartphones to their laptops to all kinds of facilities available online, to be able to deliver teaching and learning to our students to improve learning outcomes. So largely, these are the 6 points that I want us to reflect on today in relation to what COVID taught us as we have this dialogue as part of the Digital Learning Africa Forum. So I'll end here and encourage that we should keep the conversation going. You can check our website, gset.org, send us a mail. We are open for all kinds of partnerships to push the agenda of making education better, to push the agenda of making more digital learning facilities and resources and knowledge available to the African teacher and learner as well. You have my email here, so reach out over email or to our general office mail, and definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. My name on LinkedIn is Ernest Gavor, so search for my name, Ernest Gavor, on LinkedIn, and do drop me a message and let me know that, yes, we met via this forum, and yes, let's form partnerships and improve education in Africa. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gavor. It was a pleasure having you on board. Since we are running short of time, we're going to go ahead and email you all the questions that our delegates are asking. Thank you so much for such an interesting session. You can go ahead and reply them back via email. It was a pleasure having you with us today.
Thank you very much for having me. And I look forward to responding
so
to all those emails.
Have a great day ahead. Thank you.
Have a safe. Bye.